Hello and welcome to Bat Flips and Nerds, the baseball podcast with a British twist. I am your host this evening, Ben Carter. I am joined by Darius Austin. Darius, imagine not loving baseball. Couldn't be me. What did we see last night?
Couldn't be me. It might be the best baseball game I've ever watched. I think it was extraordinary from start to finish, pretty much. There wasn't a moment that you felt like the tension had dropped. I think the closest we got was maybe when Bichette hit the home run, and it felt like, oh, maybe the Blue Jays are going to pull away here. But we can get into all of that. Yeah, it was a tremendous game. I think everybody watching it live was kind of losing their minds, and they just sort of kept stacking things up on top of it as well. It was when you're like already like, this is ridiculous, and they did another six things after that that were also ridiculous.
It was an insane game. It feels like we could do a five-parter just on last night's game, and at some point I imagine there will be oral histories and stuff to talk through this whole series. But we thought, yeah, what an insane game. Let's jump on very quickly, talk about some of the crazy things that happened. I cannot imagine being a fan of either of those two teams. I didn't stay up late for it. Darius, I know that you did. I'll let you talk about what it was like to experience it live. I just watched the highlights this morning, made sure to get no spoilers, pulled them up on YouTube. I think it was a good 40-minute package that MLB blessed us with, and my heart was racing for about 38 of those 40 minutes, just watching the highlights with absolutely no skin in the game. So, yeah, Blue Jays fans who obviously are waking up devastated this morning, Dodgers fans who must be on cloud nine. I cannot imagine the roller coaster of emotions. What was it like for you, Darius? I know you stayed up and watched it all. Yeah, what was your heart rate like as that game went on, and especially as the later innings unfolded?
Yeah, it was pretty high. I was thinking while I was watching it that have been in this position. I've watched the Giants in Game 7 against the Royals in 2014, and that didn't really feel like this. This was almost more nerve-wracking. It felt like, if people remember, I think it was Alex Gordon maybe hit the triple in the ninth after Bumgarner had gone in his
Yeah.
heroic bullpen stint, and it sort of seemed like he was cruising, and then suddenly this triple came out of nowhere. It sort of felt like that, but for about 3 hours instead of 5 minutes. It was ridiculous. I was like, I don't actually like, obviously I prefer the Blue Jays one, but like I don't have a personal stake in this. I'm not a fan of either of these teams, and I was dying. So yeah, the poor fans of the actual teams must have been absolutely hearts jumping out of their chests, because there were so many moments as well. It wasn't like a bunch of scoreless innings. It wasn't like the epic Game 3 where actually mostly we're setting down the lineups and the pitching's doing its stuff. I think there was traffic on the bases pretty much every inning, a lot of hits, a lot of close plays, a lot of bang bang defensive stuff that you just think fraction of a second either way this game could have been totally different. So yeah, but I felt emotionally drained by the end of it. It was a fantastic watch. Um, couldn't really believe that it went on as long as it did either. And obviously we had some incredibly unlikely heroes as well, which was pretty cool. And I think maybe the most remarkable thing about last night was just who ended up saving that game for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think we're going to get into all of that. I mean, it's rare that a game lives up to the hype, especially a World Series Game 7 at the end of a series that's been as good as this one. But yeah, I think it truly did deliver. I think we're going to try and just focus really on some of the things that happened in that game and the series as a whole. There will be plenty of time maybe for more of a reflection on where this ranks among World Series games or among World Series generally. Boring, is this good for baseball chat about whether the Dodgers are ruining the sport. They're not. I'm sure we have plenty of time for that in the off season, but I think right now it all feels very visceral and real, and maybe we'll just reflect on some of the stuff that happened. I know our podding colleague Rachel was at both Game 6 and Game 7. Obviously, a huge Blue Jays fan who has supported the team, since she was a little girl. I know she went with her dad, I think, to both games. Must have been just an unbelievable experience. She might be able to jump in here and chat with us for 5 minutes about what it was like to be in the ballpark. If not, we'll try and make sure we can pin her down another time to talk about that, because I can only imagine the level of emotion and feelings and things happening if you're actually in the ballpark. But maybe we can go back and forth a little bit at the start here, just talking and throwing out some of the most insane moments from last night. We don't necessarily have to stick to a certain order. It's almost hard to remember what order some of these things happened in. But I think it's worth calling out some of the insane stuff that happened. Maybe we start at the end, honestly. It almost gets forgotten that it was, well, to me, even though it was 12 hours ago or whatever, that Will Smith hit the game-winning home run. For a guy who had basically the biggest hit of the game, the go-ahead home run that ended up being the difference, it almost feels like that will end up being like the fifth or sixth best remembered moment from this game. But wow, what an unbelievable moment for Will Smith. I guess we can combine that maybe with that final inning and the game-ending double play, and that in itself, like everything that went into it. The fact that Betts was the one to do it, having struggled all series, the fact that Betts and Smith swapped spots in the lineup right before was it game 6, and that happened to, he was the guy who came up with the unbelievably clutch home run at the end. Almost a personification, really, of why this Dodgers team is so hard to take down, right? Because they have quality players up and down the lineup who can hit a home run at any time. We'll get onto a less likely home run that was hit another time in this game, and who played really, really good fundamental defense. And that was on display, I think, especially throughout the final few innings of this game. But an underratedly difficult double play to end it by Betts, I think, going to his left, having to then throw back across his body. Kirk, obviously not a fast runner, but it was not routine. Yeah, what were your thoughts on Smith's home run and then the Dodgers managing to close it out when it looked like it could get away from them again in the bottom of the 11th?
Yeah, Smith is. I think it might get a little bit lost in all of it, especially because obviously there was maybe an even bigger home run to tie the game a couple of innings before, which we can talk about in a minute. But yeah, it was kind of a surreal experience to watch it because that ballpark was so loud and everybody was so hyped, and it felt like even when the Dodgers had scored most of the evening, they got back up quickly, and this was the real sort of deflating. You could just hear the pin drop suddenly. The air went out of the room. Yeah, Smith definitely got all of it. Shane Bieber kind of looked like he was, cruising in that inning, and then suddenly the ball was out of the park, and the ballpark was silent. I think Rachel told us it was 112 decibels in there earlier in the evening. They flashed up something on the jumbotron. So if you're thinking watching on TV, was it really loud in there? Yeah, it was really loud in there. Fantastic atmosphere. So yeah, it did. It kind of felt like the Dodgers were just going to find a way, even though the offense didn't really click ever in this series. That the most they scored was 6 runs. This is a team that averaged more than 5 runs a game in the regular season. So the Blue Jays did a fantastic job to limit them the way they did. And there was definitely, as I said, that point when Bichette homered earlier in the game, you thought, wow, 3-0 already. This could be it. The Dodgers have really struggled to score runs, and you didn't think that they were necessarily going to be able to do it that evening, and they eked it out in dribs and drabs and solo homers and sacrifice flies, and yeah, it was not a Dodgers like offensive performance. But the thing about this lineup is they've got so much quality up and down it, and yeah, a guy like Betts is struggling, a guy like Freeman is struggling. No, it's okay, we've got Ohtani, we've got Will Smith. There's guys everywhere who can hurt you on this team. And yeah, an unreal moment for Smith to just hit that home run. I guess he'll be a Dodgers legend forever now. But then the bottom of the inning, it doesn't get more tense than having the tying run on third base, does it? The bottom of the 11th inning in Game 7 of the World Series. Hats off. I'm sure we want to talk about Yamamoto because the guy pitched the night before. This wasn't like, he's on the short rest, he's had a day or two off. It just came out. He pitched another 6 fantastic innings the night before after throwing a complete game earlier in the week, and he's just back on the mound, and not for like a couple of pitches. This was the 3rd inning he was out there, and it looked like they weren't going to get the ball off him. So yeah, Vlad coming up the first guy in that inning was not the guy he wanted to see. I don't think he hit a pretty authoritative double to set that up. But then yeah, that double play, I think people, when I saw it live, I was like, oh my god, like I think they're going to tie this game up when the ball got hit, because I didn't think there was going to be time. And people have made a lot about Betts and his unreal transformation into one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball in his mid-30s. Pretty crazy thing to do. And yeah, I think that just typified what he'd done, because he did make it look pretty easy, even though the amount of tension there was. That ball was not, a weak tapper up in the middle, and he just scooped it up and stepped on second and made a pretty clean throw to first. It was kind of seamless. So yeah, hats off to Mookie Betts, who's really struggled at the plate. And just Yamamoto, World Series MVP, what more can you say about a performance like that? The dude looked like, yeah, you'd probably have to tear him off the mound if they were going to get him out of that game, because he wanted to be the guy who was closing that out.
Yeah, that was the best individual pitching performance across the World Series I can remember since Bumgarner, and arguably even better given he went out in Game 7 on 0 days rest, like you say. I don't know if that's happened before. I think probably last time it did would have been like the 1920s or something. It just isn't something that has been done, never mind in modern baseball, but just since starting pitchers were, given days between starts. It's absolutely unbelievable what he was able to do. And like you say, it almost felt like if that game went 13, 14, 15 innings, he was just going to be like, I'm good, leave it to me, I've got this. And we saw him in, God, what would it have been? Game 3 that went 18 innings, right? He was warming up to come in to pitch, right? And that was again on maybe 1 day's rest because he pitched Game 2, didn't he? So, I mean, this guy clearly just wants the ball in his hands in the biggest spots and could care less about whether he'll have his best stuff, just wants to be out there doing it. And an unbelievable tip of the cap for his World Series performance. I was among many who didn't necessarily think he was the pitcher that maybe we all expected when he first signed that contract. And this whole season, he's been unbelievable, but this postseason, it's just got to a whole new level. And yeah, they will tell stories and write books and make films about some of his feats in this series. And look, Shohei Ohtani is special and always will be, and had a massive role to play in this game and in this series. But really fitting that Yamamoto got World Series MVP. I just am out of words to describe what he was able to do in this series. And finding that ground ball when he needed it the most just summed it up. What an unbelievable athlete. What an amazing performance in this series. Let's get back, I guess, a bit. Sorry, go on.
That did also remind me there was the moment. It didn't really come to pass. There wasn't enough time to dwell on it, but there was a moment during that inning where they cut to the bullpen and Clayton Kershaw was warming up in the bullpen.
Yes.
And I thought back to our conversation about, are we going to get Clayton Kershaw blows the save in the World Series to end his career? And fortunately, it was taken out of Dave Roberts' hands, but there was definitely a moment there when I thought they're going to tie this up and they're going to have to bring Kershaw in because nobody else is left.
It did feel for a moment like we were getting to that inevitable moment where Kershaw comes in with option A, earn the save in Game 7 of the World Series in the final game of your Hall of Fame career, B, blow it one final time in the playoffs to end your illustrious Hall of Fame career. So I'm quite glad that didn't come to pass. But it did feel that was maybe going to be on the cards for a moment there. And I will say, one of the very cool things I think about a Game 7 and this one in particular, given the just ability of the teams on display, is it becomes like this crazy Avengers, all-stars guys just coming out of the bullpen no matter what to pitch, where you get, I think Glasnow came in, Blake Snell came in for the ninth. We obviously had Yamamoto on the Blue Jays side. We had Bassett came into the game. We obviously had Bieber come into the game. Like all arms, whoever we need, you have to be ready to go. Which is just, unbelievable. Yay Savage, he came in, didn't he? I mean, I love that about there is no tomorrow. You just got to throw everyone out there. We're going to see all of your best players, all the stars of this series out there one more time. So that, I think, is a really cool element of these win or go home games. It's like, you just got to throw it all out there.
Yeah. I don't remember one quite like this, probably because we'd never seen a team with talent quite like this, but just Shohei Ohtani, Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitched in the same game. And then the Blue Jays threw Scherzer and Bieber and your Savage. Like, this is, you just don't see this. Even in the World Series, it hardly ever happens that you get quite this volume of it. But it was remarkable to see.
Unbelievable. We should probably talk about the ninth inning. And I'll be interested to hear what it felt like for you watching live. When I was watching the highlights, they were kind of making this big point in the top of the ninth about Blue Jays up by 1. Ohtani has to bat this inning. It was kind of like, we've got 8-9-1. No matter what, Ohtani will come up with a chance to tie the game. If someone gets on base, a chance to win it. And even during the at-bat that ended up tying the game from Miggy Rojas, they were talking about, you cannot let Rojas get on base here. You cannot walk him. You do not want to have Ohtani come up with a chance to give the Dodgers the lead. And I'm sure it felt like that a little bit watching it. It was like let's just skip to the bit where Ohtani comes up and it's game on the line and he has to hit a home run to tie it. And almost people forgot that there were 2 batters to come before them, and especially Mickey Rowe, who hadn't had a hit in a month before this game. He did get one a bit earlier in the game, didn't he? But hadn't had a hit in this game, and has never really been a home run threat in his career. No offense to Miggy Rowe, a player who we've all come to love, but certainly a super utility at best. And it just felt like so that's baseball that he would be the one to turn on a pitch after a really good at bat and stick it effectively, no doubt, over the left field fence to tie it off Jeff Hoffman, who to that point, Colorado Rockies legend, by the way, to that point had been lights out in the series and in the entire postseason for the Jays. Yeah, what could you believe what your eyes were seeing? What was going through your mind as that ninth inning unfolded and Rojas came to the plate and Ohtani stood there watching him in the on deck circle?
Yeah, I think you're right. Nobody was even really looking at Rojas. They were thinking about Ohtani. I think somebody in one of the baseball chats said, "Who writes Ohtani's scripts?" It felt like this was going to be another WBC moment. You know, Ohtani comes up 2 outs, bottom of the ninth to save the Dodgers season. And even looking at the other guys, you know, Enrique Hernandez, you know, he's always had this postseason magic. You thought, oh, maybe he's going to do it again. And then Will Smith obviously was up after Ohtani. Rojas was the guy nobody was looking at, certainly not to tie the game. You thought, oh yeah, maybe if they let one of these guys get on, then Ohtani's got a better chance to drive somebody in. But nobody was thinking he's going to take Jeff Hoffman deep. I mean, Rojas hit 1 home run off a right-handed pitcher, full stop. I think this season, just unreal that it was him who stepped up. Yeah, 594 OPS he had against righties this season. If you were making a list of like who would you want in baseball, not just on these teams, who would you want in baseball to come up in the bottom of the ninth if your team down by 1? Miguel Rojas would be very, very far down that list especially against a righty. This is not a thing that should happen, but this is what makes baseball great, right? This is what makes it so hard to predict. Anybody can be a star at any point, and I don't know if there's ever been a better personification of that than Rojas being the one to tie it and to tie it on a home run, was just really, really shocking. Not a wall scraper, as you say, just definitely got all of it, and I could not believe it. I was just waiting for the Ohtani at bat to see if Hoffman could get him out. I did not think this was going to be the moment.
Yeah, it took me back. It took me back a bit to the Rajai Davis home run off Chapman for the Guardians back in that series against the Cubs in 2016. But in terms of like unexpected source of power, but I almost think like in that moment we all knew that like Davis was a tying run, and this was he just had to get hold of one. It would tie the game. It almost felt like we forgot here that Rojas was able to swing the bat and could do something with it. Folklore instant for Dodgers fans, obviously, who I'm sure couldn't believe their eyes. The broadcast couldn't believe their eyes. Stadium couldn't believe their eyes. It felt like an absolute pin could drop. But yeah, what a moment for Rojas, and yeah, like you say, what an insane display of what makes baseball so great in that moment. And then the bottom of the inning, I'm going to mess up the sequencing of exactly what happened in what order here. I think Vladdy doubled to lead off, right? And got himself in scoring position with no outs. Then there was the bunt over to get him to third, which was a pretty good bunt and actually very well fielded by, was that Snell at that point, or maybe am I confusing this with the 11th inning now? Sorry, I'm already
You're confusing this with the 11th. So I think Vladdy looked like he got one in the ninth, but
that's right.
It was actually an out. Hit a deep fly, obviously,
pinch run, of course,
with IKF, which is why he was in the game. And then I think Barger walked, and then there was a little bit of bench clearing action. Just a little cherry on top. Why not have the benches clear as well? World Series game 7. When I think it was not remotely intentional, but it was. Still quite intense moment.
Was that in the ninth inning? I can't believe that. I thought that was earlier in the game. Maybe, yeah, you might be right.
That was trying to think now. Maybe I'm thinking of a different inning. So this is what last night was like. There was so much going on.
I know. I knew this was going to happen. I think the bench clearing was a bit earlier in the game, but there was a hit by pitch there.
There was a hit by pitch in the ninth. But it was Yamamoto hit Kirk. Yeah, the hit by pitch.
That's right.
Was Wroblewski, wasn't it? Yeah. I'm thinking of that one. Yeah. So Yamamoto hits Kirk and loads.
That's right.
Bases.
1 out,
and then 1 out, which I think and again then you thought the Blue Jays are going to win this again, and Andy Pajes comes into the game, and first there's this ground out, which is they get the force at home barely, and
I
there's
was
this
going to
little
say,
replay moment where Will Smith's foot he reaches for the ball and it lifts up and it comes off the plate, and just in time, just before Isaiah kind of Flafer can get home, his foot comes back onto the plate. But we are talking fractions of a second here. It so easily could have been different timing, and IKF took a dreadful lead off third base.
I was going to
I
say,
think
the screenshots came out, didn't they? If he was like a couple of feet off the bag at third, maybe out of fear of having another game six ending and being doubled up, getting too far off the bag. So obviously the infield was all drawn in. I don't know if it was just a moment where his mind went blank and he kind of forgot that it'd be helpful to be a bit further down the line when a ground ball wins the game. But he wasn't far enough off the bag. And then I think as well, he chose to slid into home. And I think actually if he sprints through home rather than sliding, again, it was so close. Maybe that's enough to beat it out. And then there was the awful moment where there's instant replay, has his foot lifted off, as you said. It's like, oh my God, the World Series is about to end on instant replay in New York. Fortunately, they decide that Will Smith kept just enough toe on the base right before kind of Falefa's foot crossed over. So that was insane, to get us to two outs. And then, as you say, Andy Pajes comes into the game and
I
has his moment.
I mean, watching this live, you could see that Hernandez just had the terrible ball. So Ernie Clement, which, again, Ernie Clement, I think, set the record for hits in a postseason, which is just a ridiculous sentence to say. I know the postseason's long now, but still, Ernie Clement, come on. So Ernie Clement hits this deep fly ball to left field, and you can see that Kike is just he's not under it. He's got it wrong. He's kind of scrambling. He's looking over his shoulder. He's running towards the wall. It's like, I don't think he's going to make this catch. And out of nowhere, Andy Pajes, he comes barreling into the frame. He reaches up, he gloves the ball, and obviously he runs directly into Hernandez and somehow still holds on to the catch to save the game. And I think I actually shouted out loud at that point because I couldn't believe that Pajes had made that play, and he literally just come into the game for Tommy Edman to play centre field, and immediately the ball finds him and he saves the Dodgers season. Unreal.
Yeah, insane. I think, like you say, Hernandez completely misjudges it, and off the bat, it kind of looked like a fairly routine fly ball, and I know everything Clement has hit this playoffs has just found grass, and so it wouldn't have been a shock if he just hit one that found the gap. And like you say, the minute the camera pans and you see Hernandez first tracking towards left centre, then effectively running at a dead sprint backwards, you're like, he's not got this. He would have had to have performed an unbelievable basket catch to bring that in. It looked like he wasn't even going to get a chance to do that. And then Pajes, and smartly, I guess maybe Pajes goes high to catch it up in front of the wall. Thereby, at least there wasn't the awful, clash of arms as both gloves go for the ball. He was well above Kike Hernandez as he made the catch. And then how he managed to hold on, I do not know. One batter into the game, having just been brought in case they need a stronger arm in the outfield. I don't think Tommy Edman makes that play, I'll say that. And then there's this, again, the shocked silence of, oh my God, did he catch that? He did. We're going to the 10th. And at that point, Blue Jays fans must have been wondering which god out there had it out for them, because it just felt like whatever they did, the Dodgers found a way. Absolute insanity.
Yeah, that was really the way it felt. It didn't feel like the Dodgers had control of the game, but it just seemed like every time there was a moment that the Blue Jays could have taken it away, they just sort of clung in there, and things broke their way.
It was, there were other moments too that we could talk about. I think a few unbelievable defensive plays. That force out at home, I guess, to start with, that was Rojas as well, right? Where he kind of stumbled and then threw a look. IKF probably should have beat it out, but still, to kind of make that play, stumble, get the throw home strong enough and accurate enough to get the out, I thought was unbelievable. There were two amazing defensive plays for the Blue Jays that come to mind. I think Varsho in centre field had a diving catch that, if he had misjudged, would have scored at least one run, possibly two, when there were runners on base. I think that was
I think that was the sack fly, the first.
That's right.
Bases were loaded.
Bases loaded, was it? Yeah.
It was one of those where Varsho's running in, and if he dives and if he misses it, it's going to go, right past him to the wall.
Yeah.
The bases are going to clear. Might want to have been a triple as well if he'd missed it. So yeah, it was absolutely crucial that he caught that ball. And Varsho has been like that all postseason. He's made some remarkable plays for the Blue Jays. Really saved a lot of runs, I think, and a lot of them he's done where you don't really realise. I can't remember which game it was earlier in the week, but he sort of got one. I think the Freeman hit, and when it came off the bat, you were like, "Well, that's a double." And Varsho sort of caught it like it was quite a routine play, but I think he covered a colossal amount of ground to get there. And it's one of those where if you have a bad centre fielder out there, they're not getting close to the ball, and if they are, they're making some sort of spectacular diving attempt. And he just got it on the run. So yeah, really underrated how good Dalton Varsho is out there, and he really showed off this postseason. And then we have the Vlad dive at first base, which was extraordinary.
Such a good play. And that was Edman, right? And again, there were runners on base at that point, right? And it's scolded down the line, and Vlad lays out, makes the catch. And he had an unbelievable defensive series, didn't he? I'm thinking back. There was a double play in this game where he made a great throw to second and they doubled up Freeman at first when Otani was running and he wouldn't have had time to go to the bag and throw. He had not double play in this series, but the play where he came off first base, picked the ball and then made a perfect strike throw to third for an out. I think it's easy for us to, well, I don't want to speak for you. For me, to look at Vladdy and go, that's a guy who's only ever going to give you value with his bat because he is a larger human being who is not the most flexible guy in the world. But he has turned himself into an asset at first base, right? And he, I think, saved the Blue Jays runs multiple times this series with his glove and deserves a ton of respect and credit for that. Yeah, he's, not going to win a gold glove anytime soon, I don't think. But he is so consistent, so solid over there, and made massive plays when the Blue Jays needed him to. So yeah, again, another one of those guys who just, when the lights shine brightest, he is Mr. Dependable.
Yeah, what I hear from Blue Jays fans who've been watching them a lot is that he has really played well at first base all season. This isn't just a Nick Castellanos in the playoffs thing. This is a trend that he's shown all year. So I think he has worked really hard at it, and he had made some just visually very impressive plays, arm strength, the dive. He looks pretty athletic out there now.
He does. I'm trying to think of what else. I guess the bench's emptying was insane, where it was Robleski pitching, wasn't it? And Andres Jimenez batting, and he went up and in. Was it 3 pitches in a row, or certainly 3 times in the at bat with fastballs, which I kind of get. If you're Jimenez, you're probably a bit annoyed when that third one buzzes you up and in and actually catches you, where it's like, he doesn't really crowd the plate. Fine, if your scouting report says go up and in, go up and in. But to miss 3 times, all not far away from his chest, neck, head, I can see why you'd be a bit annoyed. I do think at some point you have to think, I don't think they're throwing at me as the number 9 hitter in the World Series Game 7 in like the 6th inning of a 1-run game. It seems unlikely, and maybe calmer head should have prevailed at that point. But look, emotions are running high in this game, right? And so I get why people were ready to go, and that just happened to be the sort of spark that did it. But that was a sort of bizarro moment of, the bench is empty. The bullpens are clearing too. Okay, sure, why not? That's the one thing this game's been missing. So again, that must have been bizarre to watch live, and a good 5-minute respite from the tense baseball to have a few men stand around and hug each other in a big circle in the infield.
Yeah, the pitch before he kind of looked like he moved his hand towards it, Jimenez. It wasn't really an avoidance of the pitch. But then, I think, I don't know if anyone's had the lip reader treatment on Robleski, but I think he was saying something to the effect of, why the F would I be trying to hit you at this point? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, that was I think what most of us are asking. Why would you plug Andres Jimenez? And entertaining to still see that was the opinion that Jimenez had of the event, even if I'm not sure anybody else really believed that.
I guess, maybe to speak a bit more generally about the series then. That bottom of the Blue Jays lineup, it felt like constantly were just a menace, weren't they? And look, Jimenez didn't have a great season for the Blue Jays, and even in this World Series, it felt like he maybe was one of the weaker links in this lineup. But you also had guys down there who were just contributing time and time again. Addison Barger ended up getting moved up the lineup for this game, didn't he? I think he was in the 5-hole, but he hit something like 500 in the World Series, which is just insane. They could not figure out a way to get him out, even when it seemed like when he got beat by pitches, he was finding ways to line him into left field and get the barrel there. He was outrageous. Ernie Clement, like you said, early Barry Bonds Clement setting the postseason record for hits. He was just a total machine. Again, they could not figure out a way to get him out. So it did feel like, although the Blue Jays lineup perhaps less heralded than the Dodgers. It felt like they had the edge there, where it was like there just seemed at times like there were no weak spots here, and that for all the amazing talent the Dodgers had in their rotation, especially, and in their bullpen at times, that if you made a mistake to anyone, it was going to get punished. And the Blue Jays were so good at just consistently getting traffic on base, making them pitch under duress, forcing them to make great pitches, and oftentimes as well having those runners on base, then taking a base when a wild pitch happens, and just constant pressure and stress the Dodgers have to deal with. So I think that to me was a kind of constant through the series, was just the Blue Jays lineup being unrelenting. Shout out, I guess, to George Springer too, who clearly very injured in both Game 6 and Game 7. Not just playing through it, but playing really well through it and managing to get key hits at key times. What a warrior. I know the Blue Jays fans love him, but he definitely cemented his legacy with them in this series. But yeah, that stood out to me, was just how good this lineup was top to bottom in the whole series.
Yeah, they all played well. Springer, when you sort of hear in the regular season, like there's a nail, and they're like, oh well, he'd play if it was the play. I think that was definitely Springer this week. He obviously sort of could play, but I don't think he ought to have been out there from like a medical standpoint. It's just this is the last game of the season, and I am going to be out there if I can possibly move. So here we go. Same with Jimenez. His knee obviously is not right, and he can still hit, but he can't run, and so I think he was just gutting through it. They were. Some of them were on their last legs, I think, but they all played fantastically well. Very interested to see how some of these guys
Bichette, sorry, with the knee, yeah. I mean, that home run, we didn't even talk about it, but what a moment where, who was it in front of him they intentionally walked? Was it Vlad?
I believe it was Vlad.
It must have been, right? And then it was first pitch to him, right? Ohtani threw, and he just, talk about a no doubt home run to the deepest part of the ballpark, the backdrop, the sort of slow limp around the bases. That in itself just felt like, oh my God, that at the time felt like we've just had our World Series moment before there were 15 more of them to come. But playing on one leg, as you say, to have a moment like that was just insane. And he ended up being the guy who was
Ohtani
for.
did
You're
not.
Right.
Ohtani was causing all sorts of controversy anyway because they were giving him a long time to warm up. Also, you could tell that the control was just not there. He threw a lot of pretty uncompetitive pitches. He was throwing them hard, but a lot of them were not going anywhere near the strike zone. So I think it was a little bit of a bridge too far for him, and he kind of got away with it through the first couple. But you could tell he didn't have stuff, and obviously Roberts immediately pulled him after he gave up that home run for Robleski. So yeah, it didn't get to see the best of Ohtani, but obviously he was on short rest, and this was the best way to get him in the game because obviously they were allowed to keep the DH if he started it. So I think they maybe got a little bit lucky to only get away with 3 runs in some respects, the way that he started. Fortunate with the sequence of events, but not Ohtani's finest game in this postseason, which obviously the bar has been set very high. So.
He still had a couple of hits, right? Yeah, he didn't pitch great, but he's still. When he's at the plate, he is terrifying. But yeah, it wasn't necessarily going to be the Ohtani game, and that much was quite clear quite early when he didn't quite have it on the mound. And I have some sympathy for Snyder when it comes to those mid-inning breaks, because I generally think we should make special exceptions for players as special as Ohtani, and that because no one else does what he does, having the special DH rule in place and other things that just allow him to do what he does without the rules being a hindrance is a good thing. But I also think if you're going to have those rules in place and allow him to hit and pitch and stay in the game, he then should be, when he's done hitting, rushing back out to the mound and getting ready to pitch again. He shouldn't be given the benefit of an extra 5 minutes to very slowly take off his batting gear and very slowly come back out to the mound and very slowly warm up. So, while I understand that we want to see him at his best, we don't want to have an injury because he's rushing from the plate to get back on the mound. I also think, hey, this is a massive competitive advantage if he's allowed to catch his breath after every at-bat he has and get back on the mound and do things in his own time. So I have some sympathy for Snyder on that. I don't know if that's something that he'd kind of been doing throughout the season, and we only noticed it last night because of the stakes. But that does feel like something where, as they say, my head would have been on Mars if I were a Blue Jays fan watching him get that extra special treatment there.
Yeah, I think the first inning it was maybe a bit more understandable because I believe he ended the inning on third base, so he'd spent the whole inning on the base paths, sort of moved up on a couple of outs, and then it was like now he's got to run back to the dugout, get ready to pitch and go out. But as Schneider pointed out, the second inning, that was not a problem that he had, so it was a little bit of a why are we still doing this the same thing that we did after the first inning when he made an out. So I see his perspective, and fortunately it didn't end up being like a deciding factor in the game. I was kind of a bit worried, that he was going to pitch a gem after all this extra time, and then we would have Shohei Ohtani too much warm-up time discourse. That quickly sort of became a non-issue with how everything else progressed in the game.
Yeah, that became like the 35th most interesting talking point from the game, which
Yeah.
which is a relief. And I guess number 36 and very quickly forgotten, like how good was Mad Max in maybe his final starts, possibly his final postseason start. I think we all assumed he might be done after an inning or two, and it would kind of be a let's see what he's got in the tank. And he ended up pitching into the fifth, I think, and looking really, really sharp. I obviously didn't see every pitch, but from what they showed, he really had the Dodgers hitters off balance. And probably, if they didn't have all the quality arms available to bring in, could have gone deeper. So I always hate to see a pitcher as great as he has been put in a spot like that, where it's like, oh, are they just gonna look a sad shell of their former self and be the reason the Blue Jays lose this game? But no, he stood up, was counted, had his awesome moment walking off the mound and getting the adulation of the crowd. So that, again, so quickly forgotten, but well worth a shout out that he was absolute nails for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, it was sort of very Mad Max thing to do after having looked pretty being on the ALDS roster, for him to come out there and be like, don't you know who I am? I'm Max Scherzer, and I got this.
I'm mad fucking Max.
Certainly through the first three innings, he looked pretty comfortable. Things got away from him a little bit in that fourth, obviously. But Varsho made that catch to kind of save the inning. And I did wonder whether we were going to get, more when he was being removed from the game, whether we were going to get more of a Max objection, because he hadn't thrown that many pitches. But I think even he knew that this was the time. I think this is the fourth time now that he's started. They had some graphic, I think, a World Series elimination game. I think it might be the fourth time he's started one of them, which not many people have done, obviously, because you don't get that kind of opportunity unless you have a very long career. And I think he's obviously done it for several different teams at this point in time as well. So yeah, quite an unusual stat to have. But yeah, I love Max. I don't know whether we'll see any more of him, and if we do, I'm kind of nervous that it's not going to go very well. But it was really nice to see him have a pretty good start in this massive game.
Yeah, he started 2019 World Series Game 7, didn't he, for the Nationals, obviously, in a game that they ended up winning. Was that the most recent World Series Game 7? No, we've had one since then. But I mean, yeah, still awesome for a guy to start two separate World Series Game 7s for two separate teams. It would have been awesome if he could have ended up on the winning side of both, but I think testament to how good he's been for so long and how he's the guy you want on the mound in those big spots. So yeah, that was very cool. I feel like we could talk more about this game. I don't know if you want to talk about some of the other games. Where do you stand on Game 6? Ball stuck in the bottom of the wall, called a dead ball by the umpires, runners stay on second and third. I'll let you go first. I don't think it really mattered in the end, right? Because the runner at second got stranded, which ultimately was the tying run. But did you feel the Blue Jays were hard done by the decision there to call time and put both runners on second and third?
I think it's pretty clear that was the right decision by the rules. I think it's emblematic of the fact that the Blue Jays just did not really get any of the luck going their way these last couple of games. Perhaps the most emblematic moment of just like, come on, can we have one? Give us one break.
Just give us this.
That was kind of, yeah. But yeah, I know that lots of people were getting mad about it, but yeah, that is the rule. The rules are pretty clear about this. I don't think there's, if you ask anybody who umpires, they're going to say the same thing. That is the clear, correct decision. So I don't think there's a controversy in that regard. I think it was just bad luck for Toronto. And we saw quite a lot of that over the last couple of nights.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think people are getting stuck up on the fact that the ball could have been easily taken away from the bottom of the wall. And obviously, when the ball was removed, it wasn't lodged in a way that it was impossible to get out. But I think the rules, as you say, are super clear on this. Like when the ball is stuck like that, the one thing you cannot do as the fielding player is try to remove it and then decide that actually you can't, because once you try to play the ball, you are then stuck. So completely the right decision from Dodgers centre fielder, whose name I'm blanking on, who came into the game for like 4 total outs in the World Series and managed to find himself in the centre of that controversy, for putting his hands up immediately and noticing that the ball was lodged. Insane luck that the ball, I've never ever seen a ball get stuck there at the Dodgers centre before. You see it sometimes like in other stadiums where there are walls, like at Wrigley or at the Ivy. I've never seen a ball manage to wedge itself between the foam and field like that, which again speaks to their bad luck. But I think the rules are super clear in that that was the correct decision. And as I said, ultimately didn't really matter because yes, maybe that run from third scores, but that run from second wouldn't have. And then the double play to end it, another just insane moment in an insane series. But Kike Hernandez, as you say, always seems to find himself at the centre of something crazy when it comes to these big games. This time getting a great jump on the line drive to left field, making the catch, throwing to second base where Rojas made an excellent pick for the double play to end it. Hard to pin blame on whoever that was at second, who strayed a little bit too far off the bag. Was it Barger? But another insane way for the game to end.
Yeah, yet another insane way for the game to end. Yeah, I think sort of this, generally speaking, we have seen maybe a bit more of a tendency towards aggressive base running. I think the numbers suggest that maybe base coaches are a little bit too safe in the aggregate and that they don't take risks quite as often as they should. I think this Blue Jays team has been pretty good at pushing the boundaries and sort of extracting some extra value out of lots of bits of the game. But yeah, it was another thing on a night of, very small margins of could the Blue Jays have easily won this game? Yeah, they absolutely could. The Dodgers only scored 3 runs. So when you think about the ball stuck in the wall and this, yeah, it was kind of just one of those nights where you felt like nothing was going to quite pan their way.
Yeah, the theme through the series. I guess we should talk as well. I'm skipping around a lot here, so feel free to take this somewhere else. But Trey Savage and what he did through the series, and especially in Game 5. A story that's been talked about a lot in that he started the year out in Single A, High A, obviously worked his way up through the different rungs of minor league baseball, and ended up pitching in the World Series, which in itself is an absurd story. But then that performance with 12 strikeouts in 6 innings, was it? I mean, just an unbelievable pitching performance against one of the best lineups in baseball. Given the circumstances, given the opponent, given his experience level, it was absolutely insane and would have been one of the main storylines if the Blue Jays had managed to hold on. Of course, overshadowed in the end by Yamamoto, who said that's cute, I'll do the same thing just without ever having to rest or sleep. But I think worth a shout out to Trey, who, I mean, the Blue Jays could not have asked for any more, and when they probably needed a dominant starting pitching performance, ended up relying most on the 21-year-old kid who'd never played a Major League Baseball game before about August.
Yeah, he's this was his 8th start in the majors. He's made 3 in the regular season and 5 in the postseason. We obviously got an appearance out of him last night as well, which is kind of nuts. But most strikeouts by a rookie in a World Series game. First time anybody's ever struck out 12 without walking a batter. I think he's going to be fascinating to see what happens next season. And there's been loads of speculation of, is it because he's got the high arm slot? Are people just not used to seeing him? But I think we saw his attitude. I think before he came out for that first postseason start, he was just like, I'm built for this. I'm ready. Let's go. Didn't seem phased by the pressure at all. He was really looked like he was born to be there, pretty much. So wonderful performance from Savage, and the Jays. We've seen lots of draft picks get to the majors quite fast in recent years, but for him to be drafted last year and then playing this role for them this year is pretty nuts.
Insane, yeah. Dominated the Yankees in the DS as well, didn't he? And of course, the league will adjust. They always do to pitchers who come in as rookies, but seeing the way his stuff was working in Game 5 and that splitter especially just looks like, look, when that pitch is good, it kind of doesn't really matter how many times you've seen him. I think he's going to be very effective with that. So yeah, it almost becomes interesting to see how that plays out in future years. But what an unbelievable first go around for him, and a way to embed himself in the hearts and minds of Jays fans. We could probably keep talking for another 45 minutes about this, but is there anything in particular you want to call out, whether it be that we've missed from Game 7 or just from the series in general, that we need to note now, knowing we can probably come back in a week when our brains are less scrambled and talk about it a bit more from a big picture perspective? But yeah, any other standout moments for you that you think we should call out before we call it a day?
Yeah, I'm sure we've missed loads of moments that people are yelling at us. I guess, Otani being on base 9 times in a World Series game and also hitting 3 home runs is sort of the faintly absurd thing that we've just come to expect from him doing. People start saying things like, "This is the Shohei Otani game." You can't have the show. It's just another Shohei Otani game, isn't it? There are too many Otani games at this point in time. I think there are probably at least 4 or 5 already that you could call the Otani game. He's just remarkable, and I don't blame Schneider for just saying, "I'm done. Let's give him the Bonds treatment. We're not facing him anymore."
Just take first.
Yeah, pretty incredible. I think Will Smith, not just for the home run, but he caught every inning of this World Series, including one game that was 2 games, and still was there in the 11th inning of Game 7, hitting a walk-off home run. Real, just incredible stuff from Will Smith, who's had to just carry a load. The Dodgers have just not had a backup catcher they can trust. They can't put Smith at DH anyway. So he's in this situation where he kind of has to go out there and be the guy for them. And that's a really difficult thing to do when you've already played a full season as catcher, to then play another month and not just in a role where you're sort of doing a timeshare, but playing the amount that Smith does is pretty remarkable. So yeah, shout out to Will Smith for a great postseason. And I think that's about it for me. I don't know if there's anyone else that I particularly want to single out. I think we've touched the main points. Just a tremendous World Series all around, really, and we thought that it was shaping up to be a good matchup, but I don't know that anybody could have expected it to be quite this good.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll finish with that. I'll throw it to you, and we can maybe work out, just obviously while it's all very raw in our brains, but kind of where this ranks in World Series that you've watched in your lifetime, and same for me. It's high up, I'll say that right now. Last thing I'll say, just on that 18-inning game, that in itself obviously just absurd. Freddie Freeman, who else? I was, as quite a few of us were, awake in time to catch the final inning of that game. It finished, I think it was about 7:15 UK time or something like that in the morning. So that was insane to wake up and start watching a bit of breakfast baseball. And of course it was, Freddie who ended things in the 18th. Shout out in that game to friend of the pod, Will Klein, who I don't think many people had heard of before the World Series started. And may even have forgotten about now, given everything else that happened. But wow, what a nails performance in that game to go. I think it was 3 innings in the end, or certainly 2+. Against, as mentioned, a very formidable lineup and get key outs for the Dodgers. I mean, they don't win the World Series without that performance. So shout out Will Klein.
Yeah, I knew I'd forget someone. Will Klein. For people who don't know, Will Klein is a middle reliever, not a preferred middle reliever for the Dodgers. Just a guy, kicking around on waivers kind of guy. Definitely not a throw 70+ pitches type of guy. I believe he doubled his previous career high in pitches in this game, and for him to reel that off when they had nobody else, he just had to keep going out there, and I think that curveball he snapped off to finish that appearance when clearly he was done. There was nothing left, and he still somehow found it in himself to do that. That's an incredible performance, and right up there with Rojas's unexpected heroic performances from guys you just didn't think were even going to be in these situations.
Yeah, it felt like a series full of just those moments, those players of just, we'll look back and be unable to believe how good it was. So where I guess for me, and again, it's very fresh in the mind, but it feels like one of the best World Series I've ever had the pleasure of watching, following. I kind of wish I'd been able to watch more of it live. I salute the Blue Jays fans, Dodgers fans who were able to stick it out for all the games in this series, or certainly a majority of them. I know there were some really great turnouts at Passyunk Avenue for watch parties to see it. I wish I was able to do that. For game one, I was actually in the US for, so I watched it in the airport as we were flying out the very start of game one, but the rest of it, I unfortunately was unable to make the sleep sacrifice work. But yeah, from what I did see, I think this is up there with maybe that Cubs Guardians World Series back in 2016 would stand out to me as one of the greatest of all time. That Giants Royals World Series, I'm sure you'll mention, where Mad Bum did his thing. Trying to think of others. Cardinals Red Sox, that was the crazy World Series with the freeze off the wall. Sorry, no, that was Cardinals. Who were they playing in that World Series? Tigers?
It was the
Rangers. That World Series was crazy. That was kind of right when I started getting into the sport. So I think there have been other World Series that have had insane moments, games that have obviously gone 6 or 7 games, but this one feels like, for just how every game had kind of insane storylines and moments, that it might be one of the best of the 21st century. But yeah, where does it rank for you among those that you were able to follow and watch?
Yeah, it's right up there with that Cubs World Series. I think obviously I personally have watching Bumgarner come out of the bullpen and then just finishing the game for after pitching 5+ innings is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. I don't think the rest of the series had the level of ludicrous moments that this series did, and even that Game 7 was not like this Game 7. It was not the same back and forth. It had that thing that people are always going to remember when you say Madison Bumgarner. You're going to be like, Game 7 2014, yeah, remember that. But it didn't have all the moments that we just talked about. I don't think we could have done a whole podcast of here's the great moments in that Game 7. It was just, Madison Bumgarner came out, and then maybe the Royals are going to turn it around in the ninth. They didn't. That's kind of what happened in that game. That Cubs World Series and the Rajai Davis moment, and the fact that all the weight of history on that game as well, I think sort of elevated that one. I guess the other one that comes to mind, which maybe is tainted by history now, is 2017 with the Astros and Dodgers. We'll obviously never know to what extent, if any, the Astros had any banging schemes or otherwise going on. But that was a remarkable matchup. They had some just absolutely thrilling, high-scoring, back and forth. I think was it Game 5 back then that was like 13-12 or something.
Nuts. Yeah.
But Game 7
Springer home run in that game.
Yeah, Game 7 was not as good as this one. And I think in terms of sheer, can you believe that happened moments, I don't remember a World Series like this ever happening. We can all remember the one or two, the David Freese kind of moments, but the things I'm sure we have missed other things that we've not mentioned, but there were so many ludicrous performances, shocking turns, and Otani being ridiculous, and Will Klein and Rojas, and all the things that we've said today, and many more. I can't think of a World Series that had all of that and was as competitive as this on top. I think it really did have everything.
Yeah, I agree. I like you say, I think, and there's probably a fun discussion for another time when we get into the dark days of winter and no baseball. But for historic importance, the Dodgers going back to back, ho hum, maybe doesn't have the same ring to it as the Cubs snapping their drought, or likewise the Red Sox or some of those other unbelievable series that we got the chance to watch. But I think for just pure moments, intrigue, big players stepping up, drama, and being honest, just unbelievably good baseball, amazing starting pitching, amazing relief pitching, amazing hitting, some unbelievable fielding. The quality of baseball under the highest pressure was just a joy to watch. So yeah, as I say, I know it's all quite emotional and raw right now because we've just seen it, but it's hard to think of a game that beats last night's game and a series that beats that one. But I'm sure we can find time to try and place it in its proper historical. Anything else before we call it a day? Hopefully we'll be back again. I mean, we have not podded in a while. There's a bunch of other really cool stuff that happened throughout the playoffs that it would be nice to maybe talk about at some point, but I think we felt like we needed to dedicate the best part of an hour just to talking about last night and what happened, and and any final words before we call it there.
Yeah, I think we can get around to a post-season moratorium and a bit of a look ahead shortly. I'm always struck by how quickly we have to transition from, hey, wasn't the World Series called, to off-season rumors and signings, and a lot of action is going to happen in the next few days now, with guys getting released, and those deals that were already agreed getting signed. And there's, I think, 8 managers have been fired this year,
Wow.
so there's a lot of turnover in that side of the game as well. So yeah, lot to come. Where's Kyle Tucker going to go? We're going to get all that kind of stuff over the next few weeks, quickly following, and all the awards, of course, will be coming up too. So we can have the Cal Rally Aaron Judge debate at some point, I'm sure. But I think that wraps this World Series for now.
Yeah, that's enough World Series chat. Let's get back to the important stuff, like who should be winning Manager of the Year. Yeah, no, plenty of time for us to get into all that, and I'm sure we will. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks Darius for jumping on and talking baseball with me, and we will be back soon to talk about some of the other stuff going on in the world of baseball. But yeah, what a night for the sport! What a night to be a fan of any team. Commiserations, Blue Jays fans. That is about as bad as a loss can possibly get, but maybe in time you'll look back and think about how awesome this series was and how much of a joy it was to watch that team. And Dodgers fans, congrats, you did it again. You bought the World Series. I hope you're happy. What a sad little life. I'm only joking. It was great fun to watch you. So yeah, thanks for listening. Goodbye.